It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo, time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. An Arab Parliament delegation visits the Rafah border crossing to press for a lift of the Israeli blockade on aid deliveries to Gaza. 18 people killed in Gaza as the Israeli occupation attacked guards securing aid sites. Iran's top diplomat says talks with the United States is complicated by an American strike on the nuclear sites. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and the Expatriates, Badr Abdulati, stressed the importance of resuming a ceasefire in Gaza, ensuring the delivery of humanitarian and relief aid to the Gaza Strip in light of the worsening humanitarian situation in the enclave. This came during a phone call between Foreign Minister Abdulati and his French counterpart, Jean-Noël Barrot. The call discussed the efforts exerted by Egypt, Qatar and the United States to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. He asserted that the international community must play its role to halt the Israeli aggression on Gaza and the West Bank. The call also tackled the latest developments following reaching a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, as well as the regional developments and means of enhancing bilateral relations. An Arab Parliament delegation led by Speaker Mohammed bin Ahmed Al Yamahi visited the Rafah border crossing to press for a lift of the Israeli blockade on the aid deliveries and the closure of ports into the Gaza Strip. Addressing a press conference at the crossing, Al Yamahi thanked the Egyptian state for facilitating the visit to the crossing, which has been used to transport the patients and wounded Palestinians for treatment in Egypt, until Israel resumed the bombardment of Gaza on March the 17th in a breach of the January truce agreement. The nearby Karm Abu Salim crossing point had been also used to allow the humanitarian aid trucks into Gaza during the truce. Since the first day of the Israeli genocide war in Gaza, Egypt kept open the Rafah land port in coordination with the international and the regional partners to alleviate the humanitarian crisis. 18 people were killed, including a child, and at least 7 security members in an Israeli occupation strike in central Gaza. The strike in the central town of Deir al-Balah appeared to more than 2 million people amid Israeli bombardment and blockade. Despite calls for the dismantling of it, the U.S. State Department has approved $30 million in funding for the controversial new aid system in Gaza. Washington has long backed the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation diplomatically, but this is the first known U.S. government financial contribution to the organization, which uses private for-profit U.S. military and logistics firms to transport aid into the Palestinian enclave for distribution at the Israeli security sites occupied in Gaza. The new system was adopted after more than 2 months of a complete aid blockade Israel enforced in Gaza that caused an acute shortage of food and other basic supplies. The Israeli Air Force carried out intense airstrikes on mountains overlooking a southern Lebanon city. Shortly afterward, another strike hit an apartment building in the nearby. Iran's top diplomat said that the possibility of new negotiations with the United States on his country's nuclear program has been complicated by the American attack on 3 of the sites, which he conceded caused serious damage. In an interview on the Iranian state television, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi left open the possibility that his country would again enter talks on the nuclear program, but suggested it would not be anytime soon. He added that Iran had not yet decided whether to allow an IAEA inspectors to assess the damage, but they would be kept out for the time being. French President Emmanuel Macron said that the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities were genuinely effective, but the worst case scenario would be if Tehran now exits the Global Non-Proliferation Treaty. Speaking to journalists after the EU summit in Brussels, Macron said that the worst would be that the consequence of this is Iran's exit from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and therefore, ultimately, a drift and the collective weakening. Iran will hold what it described as historic funeral proceedings in Tehran for 60 killed in the war with Israel, including top military commanders and nuclear scientists. 4 women and 4 children are among those to be honored at the funeral ceremony. The Iranian Health Ministry says at least 627 civilians were killed and nearly 4,900 wounded in 12 days of Israeli strikes in Iran that killed more than 30 Iranian commanders and hit 8 nuclear-related facilities and more than 720 military infrastructure sites. Iran fired more than 550 ballistic missiles at Israel, most of which were intercepted, but those that got through caused damage in many areas and killed 28 people. And the Russian missile attack killed 3 people and wounded at least 14 in the city of Samar in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region. This was the second Russian missile attack in the last 3 days on the industrial city in central Ukraine. In another development, a Ukrainian drone attack on the Russian Kursk region on the border with Ukraine injured a war correspondent from a Chinese news outlet. Russian authorities reported the attack late on Thursday and urged the United Nations to respond to the incident. Egypt's petroleum ministry said that Dhuhr gas have increased production by 60 million cubic feet per day. The ministry said that a successful redrilling operations of well number 6 in the Dhuhr offshore gas field located in the eastern Mediterranean operated by the Italian company Eni. The petroleum ministry noted that this development reflects the efficiency of the operational teams and the technologies employed in the Dhuhr field. In the same context, the ministry also commenced drilling operations on well 13 in the same field, which is expected to add about 55 million cubic feet per day upon completion. This will further enhance the field's production capacity and help meet both the local and the regional demand for gas. Oil prices rose but were set for the steepest weekly decline since 2023 as the absence of the significant supply distribution from the Iran-Israel conflict saw any risk premium evaporate. Brent crude futures rose 0.5% at $68.06 a barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up by the same amount to $65.54. European Union leaders agreed to renew the sanctions imposed against Russia over Moscow's war in Ukraine for another 6 months. They called for even greater efforts to help meet the Ukrainian pressing military needs and expressed support for the country's quest to join the ranks. At a summit in Brussels, the leaders said it was important to deliver more air defense and anti-drone systems and large-caliber ammunition to help Ukraine to protect its citizens and territory against the Russian intensified daily attacks. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.